Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Seminary of Hard Knocks podcast. Today, episode 101. 101. It is exciting. And I am excited because today I am introducing someone who is really trying not to laugh at the stupid thing I just did. My new co-host, Meagan Ranson, everybody. Meagan, what's up?
Woohoo! I'm excited to be here, Seth. I'm probably just going to laugh my whole way through this.
That's good. That's good. Because if you're laughing, then I'm laughing. The audience is laughing. We're having a good time. We're all buddies. I touched the table and moved my screen. I'm so sorry. I'm pumped. I'm excited about this. Tell people a little bit about you, and so they get to know you a little bit.
Well, shoot. I live in Michigan, which is awesome and cold, and that's not awesome. I've been doing communications for I have 5-6 years or so now. I work for Church Inc. I work for Sunday U with Justin Dean. I'm here doing this podcast with you. I'm just, a little bit here and there.
You're kind of all over the place now.
I'm all over the place.
Like such a huge, big deal.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Do you have a lot of leather-bound books?
And my office smells of rich mahogany.
There it is. And that's why she's here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. All right. Good. So complete the reference. Just complete the reference. It's always fun. Okay. So today we're going to jump into this podcast, episode 101. It's a new day for the Seminary of Hard Knocks podcast. And you can get the show notes, sethmuse.com/101. And we'll link to some of these ideas there. I don't know what we'll actually have to link as far as products or anything like that. But some of this information will link there for those that just don't want to read or listen very long.
We could link the recap if you want to purchase the recap to that church
we'll
conference.
Do that. You can get that. It's pretty cheap. Well, how much is it now?
$97.
That's not bad if you got a church budget behind you. It's pretty good.
And you get every year previously too.
That's true.
It's not just this year.
That's true. You get your talk. You get my talk. You get all the ones we're going to talk about today, which is not all of them. It's just some highlights.
Yes.
And our apologies to those of our friends of ours that we're not going to mention today, but all of the talks at that church conference were really great.
We only have so much time.
Right. And we're using it right now.
Yeah. Oh, dang it. Okay, moving on.
We're moving on. Here we go. Okay, so let's talk about the first episode, talk that we had decided to talk about. Dave Adamson is he's from North Point. He works at with Andy Stanley's church. He's the online director, online pastor, something like that. He works with online church and digital spaces and content creation. So he is Aussie Dave on Twitter. I won't know all this about everybody, but I know Dave. And so his talk was really, really great. He talked about online digital spaces and being used, like reaching people quicker. It's kind of the subtitle of what he did. The stat that stood out to me that I was like, this is really, really great. 63% of Christians attend church between once a month and never.
And never.
That was huge. And it wasn't like the younger generation. It was like 20 to 39-year-olds, or I think it was 20 to 39s, or it was the older crowd, the medium crowd, the middle group, right? Yeah. Do you remember that? Do you remember that stat?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing about that, and I think his caveat to that was that church attendance isn't decreasing, it's decentralizing.
Yes.
And I mean, we take a look at the church and we're so discouraged by the lack of attendance, but people are still engaging heavily online.
Yes.
And I love what you said too, and I'll add to Dave, and I'm sure he probably talked about this, but we don't get to determine culture.
Right.
Like but we have to learn how to work with it. So we don't get to tell people, well, you should be in person and not online, but because that's just what they're doing. We can't fight that. It's a losing battle. But we can show up where they are, and where they are is online. Yeah,
it's like his big thrust was YouTube. Like he really wants churches to get involved in YouTube. It's the second largest search engine next to Google, who owns YouTube. So
I don't know that most people even think of YouTube as a search engine, but it is.
Right, but how to fill in the blank is
blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Is YouTube for a lot of people. I mean, it's the University of YouTube. You can learn
YouTube.
He even had a stat there, like certain amount of people, I forget how many it was, but a lot of people think that they can actually learn anything they need to learn on YouTube.
Well, they might not be wrong.
That's crazy.
They might not be wrong.
No, they might not be wrong. It's man. I mean, what can you not find out really that some, and here's the deal, like his whole point was churches are not getting involved in that space. And when people are searching how do I study the Bible? How do I fix my marriage? How do I, whatever, these real issues, the keyword issues.
This was the first time I had heard anyone really talk about gearing our content and like our titles, the way we talk about our sermons, gearing them towards the online channels versus catchy, trendy things in our service. What was the example he gave about the titles with emotions? He said,
he gave a couple of examples of how they would search, and it was like your sermon title probably brings up nothing. People are not searching for that unless they know it. And then he had some other ones that were bringing up, like they changed a few words in it. And I forget what the example was.
Like how to handle your emotions versus.
That was it. Emotions. How to handle it was like managing my emotions. Got like 800 hits, on Google. And then how to control my emotions was like 1,800 hits, pages that would come up results.
Paying attention to the results of online searches versus what sounds catchy and creates a cute series logo. Right.
Because like people are searching for those things. They don't go to the church necessarily for help because they're not in the church, right? They're not connected. And this is how we can really reach people and help people with these issues and be the light of Christ in their world by being found on Google. It's in it because and like you were saying, that the culture has already decided that the online space counts.
Matters.
It matters. Like we would look at it and go, our people attend church once every 4 to 6 weeks. That's kind of the going stat, right? But to a churchgoer, even a very person that call themselves dedicated, they're like, no, I watched online 1 week, I was there 1 week, and I went to my home group 1 week, so I went to church 3 times.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, you actually went once.
Yes.
That's kind of where he was going. Is like, why doesn't the other stuff count?
Yes. I think to some extent too, like we that is something to speak into. Like we may not get to change culture, but we can influence it. Yeah. And I think like that in-person experience is really important, but that doesn't mean that we deny that people are online. And that is also a really great entry way for them to get introduced to our church is if they're looking about how to control my emotions and they come across our sermon versus somebody else's YouTube clip.
Yeah.
That might be the reason they come. And he also talked about
what they first find is a short clip that leads to a little bit longer clip that leads to the full message that leads to a playlist that leads, it's like it's like bang, bang, bang. We're leading them through this journey online to help, just like we would in a connections conversation. Yes. They come into our parking lot, then they come through our door, and then we want them to be seated by ushers, and then we want them to get in a worship service, then we want them to be in a small group. It's like we have this pattern that we want them to go through that's assimilation. And online, he's advocating for a way to do assimilation online to an actual experience. Because that was his thing. It was like not replacing the in-person, enhancing it.
Right.
Like enhancing that.
Yes.
That was so good.
Yes. Everyone needs to hear that. It's so important.
Yeah. I wrote a quote down. He said, when life gets complicated, people turn to YouTube. We need to be there providing solutions. I was like, that's the summary, I think, of his talk. It's just, we need to be there. Because right now it's like a bunch of 11-year-old girls who also show you how to unbox an iPhone or whatever. And there are other videos, like they're a Christian in a youth group, and they'll do a how to study the Bible.
Yep.
They might be right, but do you really, as a church, do we want to trust?
Do you want those people leading?
Yeah. It's like, do we want, and that's kind of an indictment, I think, on us, is that our, junior high kids are the ones that are, leading the way in discipling people online.
Yeah, we should be paying attention to that. It's a missed opportunity. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that just speaks. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking about how that speaks to the importance of our roles.
Yeah.
And like paying attention to what culture's doing. We can't sit in our little bubble of what's happening in our church. We have to pay attention to culture.
Yeah. The mandate Jesus gave us was go, not set up shop and hope they come. Or try to attract them. And I think we're past the attractional model of church, really, that let's do it so well. Let's make it so great. Let's make it so compelling. They're just not doing it. The culture there's the people who are all in on that are people who are already all in. They just love Jesus. They love your church. You could go up there and do Kumbaya on acoustic guitar and they'd probably give you a pass, but we still think the big show is what makes them. It's not. They're not connecting there. They're connecting all kinds of places, and we got to start counting that as part of our ministry strategy, not just here's ministry and then here's some digital stuff that gets them into the ministry that's real.
I feel like we could go down a really deep rabbit hole.
Definitely.
With that whole thing.
Definitely.
But we've got like 6 other people to talk about.
Yes, we do. So we'll be moving on. That's a great talk. Dave, thanks for doing that.
Yes, awesome.
Repurpose content on purpose. That was awesome. All right. So Ted Vaughn was the other one. I really loved this talk.
So
Ted
good.
He's from the agency world. And I didn't know who he was. And he's the one I was just locked in the most with. He's really good about process, and just he talks about mission, vision, values, all kinds of stuff. What did you hear in Ted's talk? That's good.
And Ted's talk. Wow. Why has nobody used that yet?
I don't know. That should be his like ripoff brand. I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know that it was like the only thing that he talked about, but one thing that's really stood out to me was about health as a church communicator, because most of us feel overworked, we feel underappreciated. And he talked about this, you are either apathetic or you're angry, so a scale.
Yeah.
And what causes that and how to resolve it. I thought that was brilliant and really, really spoke to the heart of what a lot of people are feeling. Like when he talked about that, like the room kind of, you could feel it, right? Like people really resonated with that. Yeah. How we shape the voice in the brand. We're a critical part of the mission. The Kinko syndrome.
Mm-hmm. You
want to talk about Kinko syndrome? That was so good.
That was a great analogy. And the idea of the spectrum, you're either, there's a tension in the middle that we have to manage, right? Because we're responsible for branding and quality and all that stuff in our process and getting things done on time. But we're also responsible to be a servant and like lead in a way that we're like serving others and other departments. So giving them what they need to do their job. And so in the middle, we find some balance there, and it's never really comfortable, I think, right there. And that's why we try to get out of it, I believe, to go one way or the other to extreme. And if you go to that one extreme of anger, where you're really just controlling things, you become like the brand police, the cop. And he showed a picture of Dirty Harry with a gun pointing at your face. Like that's so true. It's like you communication departments sometimes can be that way because we're just so done not knowing what's happening and all this. And so but
that's not a healthy way of leading.
No, it's not. And so then there was the other extreme where you're like, I'm just so fed up, just whatever. I don't care. The apathetic side where you're just giving them whatever they want. Your brand looks crazy. Your church makes no sense. And it actually hurts their ability they don't know this. Like it hurts the pastoral ministry's abilities to get those things they need done well from us. And like, we can't take pride in our work. So we're really upset, and so it had those two spectrums I thought were really, really great. Yeah. In his, his presentation, he asked everybody to like that. And the apathy one is Kinko's. That was like,
service provider versus partner.
Yeah. You're just
Kinko's a service provider.
Right. You take something to Kinko's. He gave the example of like, you don't want Kinko's going, are you sure? Yeah. You might need this in a different way. This orange doesn't look right or whatever, maybe you should tighten this up. And you're like, hey man, just make the copies.
Yeah.
And that's how we feel sometimes, but that's not healthy to get there either, to just go, all right, whatever. I'll just do whatever. I'm Kinko's.
Yeah.
I just make the stuff.
He had this really, really awesome chart that's a little bit some of it was over my head. I mean, I need some more brain cells to really be able to articulate it the way that he did.
Yeah.
It was brilliant when he talked about the funnel.
The inverted pyramid.
The inverted pyramid, where you have the meta narrative at the top, which is like your vision, your mission.
Yeah.
Then you have strategic vision, which is like your primary objectives. Then operational clarity, which are your goals, your drivers, threats. And then priority program. So all of the things that you do to get there. Right. And when that middle is unclear.
Yes.
Is when it puts the communications director in a really, really awkward position. Right. Because now the comms director is the one, because you get to say what is on the landing page. You get to determine what gets posted on social media. You get to determine what is on the stage announcements. It puts them in a really uncomfortable position of determining strategic clarity.
Yeah. And he even said, like, we should not be the ones that have to do that.
We should not be the ones.
And I agree. Like, that's a lot of pressure, because it's when you come in, like when you have this conversation in maybe some of the Facebook groups about promotional tiers. Like here's a
Yes.
tier 1 event, here's a tier 2 event, here's a tier 3 event. That's the comms director trying to add clarity to that middle section.
Yes.
That really should come from the ones defining that meta narrative stuff. And like, here's our operation, or we do that together. I would say that's probably better.
At least
we do
in
that
conjunction together.
Yeah, because we'll know like, oh, well, this is not going to get as much play over here as this one will. So we could speak into that, but we need a pastoral leader, some kind of directional leader that's helping us define that, because when that's defined, then we can make decisions pretty quick.
Yeah.
That speeds up the whole process.
And everyone's on board, and you're not in this really weird position of determining strategic clarity and being the bad guy.
Yeah, because conversations like, well, I'm not sure if that's an important enough event to put here in this thing, or that slows things down. Much less is just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And most comms directors are not like on the lead team, so we don't have the authority to just go, here's what you're going to get. So we have to balance that out. And that's a tough spot to put us in. It really is a tough thing to navigate when there's no clarity of like, well, here's what's most important. And what's even worse is when they say, here's what's most important. And then operationally, we don't function that way at all. Like if you said our student ministry is the most important thing, or our marriage ministry is the most important thing, or our giving, our ushers are the most important ministry that we have. But then you never talk about it. You never look at it. You never do it.
You don't resource it.
You don't resource it. It's like, well, I thought I was supposed to put that out there more than this, and I'm doing this more. It's like very confusing.
Here's the thing, too.
It was a great talk.
Here's the other.
You talked about how to close that gap to. What's that?
Keep going on your thought. It's a good thought.
I wanted to ask you, like, how did he gave us some options on how to close the gap between the communication director, he said, kind of is aware of this and helping leadership understand this is what we need.
Yes.
That sometimes feels like we're just being needy and whatever, whiny.
Yeah, that was really good, because you can talk about all of these problems. And the thing that I was going to say is, as a culture, we're still learning how to function in a digital world.
Yes.
And as a church, I mean, even more so, we're still learning. Like, grace for ourselves, grace for our leaders that are trying to figure out how to navigate this new territory that they were never, ever taught in seminary to the extent that it is now. Like, we don't know what it looks like because we've never done it before. And so we're all trying to navigate this tightrope of this whole new world that we, is new for everyone. So grace to everyone all around with how we're functioning in it. And we're talking about it now, which is great. So we're making progress,
and it's an awkward conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's a really awkward conversation that, you have to really just go in both groups of people. And I'm kind of thinking like pastoral ministry leaders, and then there's the ones that have been considered agency service, and this could be like operations department, communications department, anybody that's not non-ministry, non-pastor kind of thought, which I think communication is very much pastoral, but it's just it's a different type of pastoral. But so I think that's a weird conversation to have.
It is.
So you have to go with grace.
The 5 ways to close the gap, because I thought those are really good, and I want to.
Yeah, I only remembered 4. Okay. I'll give you what I got, but I only remember 4. I was looking at that in our notes, and I'm going, "There's only 4 there." Maybe
I got you. I got you.
Got the other one? Okay.
I got you.
So to close the gap, he said, "Don't wait for somebody else to notice. To articulate and ask, advocate for yourself as a communication director."
Yes,
that was a good one.
I thought that was great.
And he said, "Embrace the mission. Embrace the tension, and just be like, this is going to be weird. Let's do this." Okay.
It's going to be weird.
It's going to be weird. It's fine.
And that's okay.
And then he said, master the brand basics. Like, be good at what you do. Like, understand why we're doing it. Have your why behind all of these detail-oriented things that seem unimportant to those that don't really run in this world, or maybe they are in different ways important, So make sure you understand the why behind all that. And then he said, ask better questions.
This was my favorite one.
So good. Talk about that a little. What is ask better questions? So
asking open-ended questions that to seek understanding and convey respect.
Yes.
That is so hard to do when we're feeling frustrated or discouraged. It's so hard to do, but it is so important. And it builds trust and builds relationship, and we need to be able to get our hearts in a place that we can do that well.
Right.
To move forward.
I loved that. That was, because I know that sometimes as communication director, we know stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't, how I'm wired is to lead with the data. And that's not always the best way to go forward. Like, hey, here's what's best to do here.
Yeah.
And it's like, who cares? I'm trying to do this.
Yeah.
Like, help me do this thing over here first, and then we can talk about how to make it better, or whatever. So it's like understanding how you're coming across in your tone and I think asking questions instead of making statements about communication when you're talking to other departments about it. Really, really, really helpful tactic.
Oh yeah. That was super convicting for me. It's definitely something I've failed in the past. And man, things could have gone a lot easier and better had I done that well.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Right.
And the fifth one we didn't have on here is prioritize strategy.
There you go.
Which is also very important.
Yes. And I know a lot of times in churches we struggle with that because strategy goes out the window as soon as the Spirit speaks, and so it's like, and let's be honest, sometimes it's the Spirit, sometimes you were lazy and forgot about it, or whatever, and we're doing things last minute. But sometimes the Spirit moves and we got to be able to move with it. And it's like prioritize strategy. I like that he said prioritize it, but it also leaves room for like those moments when it's like, hey, you know what? Something's happening. We got to move with it.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what? This weekend serving, not going to be on what we thought. Yeah. I've had that. I've had a whole week of social media stuff planned that had to do with the topic. The title was still the same, but the series was still the same, but the topic changed on Saturday.
Oh, snap.
And I didn't know,
Oh, snappity snap.
Right. And so I got all this stuff and I'm like, it's still good. It works. It's still, it's great.
Fine.
It's like, let's not freak out about that. So sometimes it happens. You got to give room for that. So I thought that was great. All right, let's move on to our next one, Dustin Stout. Did you say that?
Oh, Dustin. Yes.
Okay.
Dustin had the best intro of everyone.
Yeah.
I was so jelly.
He walked out to DMX.
I know, and I don't think anyone knew it was DMX, and he made that joke later, and everyone was like, that would be so terrible if you did. And he's like, but I did.
As soon as I heard it, I was like, that's from Deadpool. Yeah. That was my first thought. Like, that's from Deadpool.
You just admitted out loud you've seen Deadpool.
I don't care. It's good. It's funny.
It's a good movie.
I love Ryan Reynolds.
Can we talk about pooping?
Dustin had this incredible, I didn't know anything. Yeah. What was that sound that just happened? Having so many weird audio things go on this episode. I don't understand.
I just asked if we can talk about pooping.
And then my microphone did it.
And then our microphone was like, yes.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
I don't know.
Oh man. Right. Okay. Well, back to Dustin, who talked about pooping. He said, pooping is a discipline, not an impulse. And then he replaced it with posting is a discipline, not an impulse. I didn't know anything about Dustin. Dustin was funny, great speaker, had a lot of good insight. But talk about this discipline versus impulse thing. What was going on with that?
So his whole talk was about creating a compelling content calendar, which I have to give him, all the thumbs up for the alliteration. I love alliteration. So that's what his whole talk was about. So
when did you grow up Baptist?
I did. I didn't.
You didn't?
Not, but I still love alliteration.
Alliteration is a very Baptist thing. I grew up Baptist. That was always the thing.
I think maybe we were like secret Baptists because it wasn't a Baptist church, but like we did all the Baptist things.
Did you say seeker Baptist or secret Baptist? Secret Baptist. Yeah, I went to church. I was worked at church that was secret Baptist.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like you'd never know. Their name doesn't say it. You'd never know they were Baptist, but they're associated with like SBC or whatever.
Oh yeah, and then the whole service is like for sure Baptist service, but it's a non-denom church.
Yeah.
Anyway. So his whole thing, creating a compelling content calendar, that we need to be intentional about creating content ahead of time so that it's not impulsive.
Right. Being on a schedule.
And it's a discipline. It takes time and you get better at it as you go along. But impulsive content is stressful because you're always asking, what can I post today? What can we talk about? Yeah. And I remember doing that.
Yep.
It's inconsistent, which is the enemy of momentum. It's
Yes.
ineffective because it doesn't work with the algorithms, because people aren't seeing your content regularly. They're not commenting on it because it's not thought through.
Yeah.
And it's wasteful. Waste your time.
Yeah, waste your time and theirs. And it might be good in the moment, but it's not going to get you long-term, play
Yes.
on social media. It was really, really
Yes.
great.
Yes.
He talked about like how to build that calendar out. And he said you needed the strategy, like being intentional about building that calendar. And he quoted Gary Vaynerchuk, who I love, but also,
don't go watch his videos unless
fair
you're like
warning,
prepared.
Yeah, fair warning, not a pleasantly spoken man. He will tell you what he thinks,
it's not
but
clean.
Yeah, he's not clean.
He not clean.
He not clean. He cuss a lot.
He not clean.
But he says brilliant things sometimes with a lot of words in there. So we take those out and we add it all up, and it still is good. It says, He says, attention is the most valuable asset, and that's I think so true. I think also it might be changing a little. That emotional response is a valuable asset on social media. I was
going to say trust, like trust with your brand or your product.
But even go back to like my example of like how the culture determines how they've attended church. It's when they've given attention to it, not when they've physically attended.
Yes.
And so it's like, I watched you online. I spent an hour and a half watching your service. I was there.
Yes.
You had my attention. That counts.
Yes.
I looked at your social media post. Therefore, our friendship has grown.
Oh, yes.
You had my attention. That's value. And like people value their own, they realize it's very short supply because there's so many people vying for it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that in Dawn's talk later. She hit on that a lot. But context was important. How networks and platforms are different. The time it takes. Tools. He gave a couple of tools like Hootsuite, Buffer, things like that to use. And then the thing that hit me the most by him, you tell me what you think about this, is the member journey. And I was like, man, I should know that. That's marketing 101. Yeah. It's how you engage with people along their journey and you're buying your product or whatever.
Yeah.
But translating into the church, so good.
Yeah.
Did you see that part?
Yeah, I did. And I love that he called it the member journey, because it is marketing 101, typically called the customer journey.
Yes.
And he just put it in church context for us to make us feel warm and cozy and familiar with it. And it was really, really good. So the first stage of the member journey is awareness. They have to know you exist. They have to see you. And that is physically with like a sign or your building or online.
Yeah.
The second stage is consideration. Once they know you exist, everything that they do is wondering, is this the right place for me?
Yeah.
And so you have to answer that question for them. And that's when it's important to know and understand your audience, right? Because you want to provide a place that says, I belong here.
Yeah. And and the last one was conversion, where that's pretty clear for us what that means, right? Very similar.
Which I love is the same. Yeah. It's the same. It's like one of the few words where in like the marketing business sector and in the church, it's the exact same word.
Yeah. And means almost, doesn't mean the same thing, but it means something.
It doesn't mean the same thing at all.
And what I loved, not even close. No, scratch that. So what I love that he said about this journey of awareness, consideration, and conversion is that he went through his whole calendar of posts and showed it and color coded them where these types of posts were being represented, one of those stages of the journey.
Yes.
So red would be awareness, blue consideration, green conversion, whatever. Yes. And you can see like each week, are you hitting content? Are you putting things out on your social media feeds that reach people who are in the awareness phase? And then putting stuff out that reach people in the conversion phase and reach people who are in the consideration phase. And so it's like that way we're having a well-rounded approach to social media. We're not missing anything. And we're not just all like raising awareness for nothing, or asking for conversions from people that are like, who are you?
I'm not even there
and
yet.
It was so great. Yeah. And he even gave examples. We'll put some of those examples in the show notes.
Yeah, but that's a good reason to go back and watch this, because he gave like specific like awareness or quotes and questions and scriptures. He gave that for all of those steps, which I thought was really, really helpful. Very practical.
I did too. And it made me want to go back and look at my calendar and go, wow, I need to. And first of all, I looked at my calendar, which is in Asana, and I use calendar view, and I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how to color code this.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know how to do it. So I got to figure that out. But I want to be able to see, like, am I hitting all of these types of hitting people with content where they are in that journey? Because I'm not sure if I am.
Yeah.
It was really, really good.
I thought, that was great.
All right, let's talk about Greg Vennerholm.
Greg.
Greg was very compelling, and it was weird because Greg is very low key, very low energy. I don't say low energy. That's not fair, but he's like low. Like
he's not the hype man.
He's not hype. And even I think the first thing you put on the screen was hype sucks.
So I was
like, yep, here we go. But Greg is like the creative director at Church on the Move. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He runs that whole creative team, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And that's a really big role.
Yeah. What did you hear from Greg that you loved?
Oh my gosh. He had so much really great stuff. I loved that he talked about, and he came out of the business sector too. So he worked for agencies, like really big agencies.
Yeah.
And then ended
clients.
up, big clients. One of my favorite things, and he actually talked about this at the end, was talking about if somebody's doing something really well, ask questions, ask them. And that's how we got connected to Church on the Move, was Whit George called him and said, hey, what typeface did you use on this particular ad? Yeah. And then he ended up working at the church because he got connected with somebody. And there are some churches that do really, really well with this. I think sometimes we're afraid to reach out to each other.
Right.
To the bigger churches and ask how you did this, or why did you do this? I did a Pandora ad a couple years, Pandora ads for marketing campaigns. And I got a call from somebody from Saddleback asking me how I did it and why I did it and what my data was it successful? And I was like, wow, that's super cool that someone from Saddleback reaches out to this little old dinky church in Michigan. Because they heard we did it.
But that's what makes the big church successful, is that they ask those kinds of questions typically. And if we in our smaller congregations would simply, I know it's hard sometimes to just not be head down and working. Mm-hmm. If we could just look up and go, what's happening out here? And then go, I want to know how they did that. Mm-hmm. And then reach out. You make some great friends that will be not only helpful, but encouraging. That will make you better at what you do. It's just, I've always thought that you're really only as strong as your network.
Yeah.
You really.
When he said, sorry, go ahead.
I'm done.
Okay. I'm just so excited. This was so good.
You can interrupt me anytime you like. Okay. That's fine. Go ahead.
He said their success isn't a mistake.
Yes.
And that was like, oh, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's he said you can avoid, there are potholes coming down the line for you that somebody else has already walked around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all know that, but
so good.
Good to be reminded. So what else stood out to you?
Well, the phrase that I love the most that he said, simple isn't. It's like, there it is. That's a great sentence. So beautiful. And his quote was even good too. I wrote it down. Great copywriting is half the words.
It's so true.
You and I both work in the copywriting field. That was like, yes, thank you. Yes. Stop giving me every single detail for this event for a 4x6 card.
Yes.
It's not going to fit.
Yes. And people won't read it.
No, they won't read it. It's so good. And
when I did that podcast with you a while back, months ago, I really butchered this quote from Mark Twain. But he said,
you want another shot at it?
I want another shot. I'm going to redeem it. I'm going to redeem it. But he said, I was going to write a short letter, but I didn't have time. So I wrote a long one instead.
That was it.
And I was like, that. And I'm paraphrasing because I didn't even look this up. I wrote it down to look it up and I forgot. But
I think you got it. I think that was it.
I think that was close to it. That was close because it takes more time to condense a message. And, but that's great copywriting.
Mm-hmm. Like it's easy just to vomit the words out and just write whatever.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. The other thing I loved in there is he talked about how with his church, they often spent so much time. Really, it was kind of the principle of is it the dip? I can't remember who did that, but it basically is like once you get up to like a certain level of quality, that you work so hard to get that last 20% to make it perfect.
Yep.
And it's just not worth it. It's like once you get up to a point where it's like, this is good. He's like a design. He showed us a design of sermon design or something his team did. He was like, this is great, but that's version like 27. He said version 5 was probably fine because when it's a sermon series graphic, they're just, those aren't really the reason people show up unless they're really controversial. Right. And so this is not that controversial. This is not going to be something we just launch a national campaign with. This is it. But we went to version 27. He was like, I remember talking about font types and color shadings and all kinds of, it was like, it just, man, at the end that really, we could have just gone with version 5 and moved on to more important things.
And he said, at some point we're doing it for ourselves.
Yeah.
We need to know when to move on. And I was like, oh,
yep.
Heart check.
Yes. That was so good. His other good quote was, without a why, without a solid why behind your what, you're just throwing style around. And that was really great. It was, I mean, that was one of those things like he's just up there talking like, hey man, this is how it is. And he would just say earth shattering things. So Greg was a great one.
He's like one of those people that like most of what he says is retweetable.
Yes.
You're just like retweet.
He's a thinker. He has really thought about it in depth. So it was great. Okay. So let's move on to Dawn Baldwin. Dawn was a communication director at Willow Creek. Although she didn't actually say that. She showed the picture like, this is Willow Creek. We all were like, that's Willow Creek. And then
that's Willow Creek.
Yeah, we're like, that's Willow Creek. We've all seen that place somewhere. But then she's also like worked with Veggie Tales, like Big Idea. And I think I heard her in a conversation somewhere say her son is working at, I want to say DreamWorks as an animator.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
she's
if you
she's
want to
connected.
talk about somebody who's a big deal, Dawn's a big deal.
Yeah.
And she's one of the nicest people.
Absolutely.
Love Dawn.
She would never assume that. She's so great. But she had some incredible, she talked about websites and info overload and how we're kind of in this state of just having too much being thrown at us at once that we just don't want to hear anything. So it's harder to get messages out. The quote that I wrote
love this data point.
Oh, it's so good. People receive the data equivalent of 174 newspapers worth of information a day.
Do you remember the good old days when you'd settle down with a cup of coffee and a single newspaper that was laid on your doorstep and that was it?
I mean,
that was all that you knew?
Kinda. I didn't really pay attention at that point.
Okay, well, your parents.
I remember my parents reading the paper. Yeah. I'm still the kind. I am a little old school though. I watch the 6 o'clock evening news every night.
Why do you do that to yourself?
I just like the news. I like the local news. I don't like CNN or Fox News or any of those others that just do whatever, for the endorsements or whatever. But I like the local news where they're just telling me what's going on around me. I'm an old man like that, I guess. I don't know. Not if you watch the news, you're an old man, but I only know older people that do that. I don't know any other people my age that do that. So anyway, I digress.
Okay. So
lots of stuff coming at us at once.
Yes. And she said this is a Willow Creek thing. Nancy Beach talked about this, who was at Willow Creek, said when everything is important, nothing is.
Yeah.
The more if we talk about everything, people hear nothing. I mean, that's a pretty common makes sense statement, but it's just good to be reminded of that.
Yeah. She said, there's a difference between reaching more people and reaching people more effectively. And it has everything to do with like simplifying those messages that we're sending out as a church. And not just continually throwing stuff out, throw it.
She used the Mark Twain quote. She used it. I didn't even remember that.
She did.
Oh man. Sorry, Dawn. I didn't mean to steal that from you.
That's why I was like, you got it, because I heard her say it and she said it right. So you nailed it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No,
she did say that. Yeah. I totally forgot.
No one can buy attention. That was another big thing. It's too expensive. It was Seth Godin quote she did.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing was just about how websites don't help people find things. We make them so complicated. They just don't help. And to really help our people, we should really focus our web strategy around making the website easy to navigate, and especially easy to navigate on mobile.
Yes. And especially because Google doesn't pay attention to non-mobile friendly websites anymore.
Not at all.
And so they have to be mobile friendly, and paying attention to who's coming to our website. Mm-hmm. That was always really interesting to me. First-time visitors versus returning visitors.
Yeah.
Is a really interesting data point. And I feel like we often develop our websites around our current audience and the people who are coming to our website for information.
Yes.
When the majority of people visiting our website on a regular basis have never stepped foot into our doors. It's like the front door of a house.
Yeah.
Our website is, and we need to craft it around the people that have never stepped foot inside.
Yeah.
And we often don't.
And if you're not doing this, you need to be paying attention to your Google Analytics of what's happening on your website. We always want the biggest traffic to our website to be from search engines. That means people are finding us, and they're interacting with us. So when they do, what are they going to find? Bunch of noise, bunch of chaos, or something they care about. And that's why that needs to be strategy. Your strategy needs to be for making it easy for them to find whatever they're looking for, whatever keyword they search or whatever.
Yeah. And she said with websites that we need to start with vision.
Yes.
Which I thought was so good. Make it compelling. What makes you unique, leverage it.
Yep.
Like, can know who you're serving. Like the theme of like know and understand your audience on like a granular level, I think permeated almost every talk.
Yeah. And that was the topic of your talk. It was just knowing your audience.
Yeah, that's all I talked about. But everybody talked about it to some extent. Because it is like you have to get granular.
Yeah.
Now.
And I think a lot of us think we know our audience. And we really haven't done the homework to know our audience. And even when we make stuff, because we're like, I know 3 people that I think represent who we're reaching that would love this. So we're going to do it. But you could have 600,000 other people that would not care about that at all. And you miss them. You miss the majority because you don't know your real audience, who you're reaching or who you could reach.
Yep.
I think that's super important. She said, marketing at its core is the art of meeting people's needs.
Love it. At the end of the day, we're providing solutions.
Yep. Super great. Super great. And she even talked about how the information sent to your brain is 90% visual anyway. So being visual and meeting needs, putting those together on your website. And I was thinking about this while she was talking. Do you know why Google beats Yahoo?
No, why?
I mean, if you just look at their home page, their search page, you go to Yahoo, it is filled with stuff. You have a search bar, but it is news, email, stuff going on, social elements. It is a full page of chaos.
I have not gone to Yahoo for a long time because it hurts me.
And the reason why is that. And then you go to Google and it is like literally a white page with this one bar and a few little action items, and that's it. You're here to search. We're not trying to sell you stuff. We're not trying to do, because you're going to search. And that's why
we're not trying to send you to the news when you're looking for images.
Right. It's just so much clearer what you're supposed to do when you go to Google, and you use it for that one main thing, right? You don't go there to find news. I wouldn't go to Yahoo to find news. You know, people don't do that. They get it in their inbox, or they go to actual sites, CNN, Fox News, whatever, or, they'll hear it elsewhere, but they're not going to go to Yahoo and want to see that right away. They could search for it, but all that's noise and distracting.
Yeah.
It's super annoying. It makes you just not want to look at it. And that's why we say I Googled it instead of I Yahooed it.
I Yahooed it.
Because nobody Yahoo's it.
Do you remember Ask Jeeves?
Yeah.
Back in the day?
The butler, Ask Jeeves.
The butler. Was he like the original search engine?
I think he might have been one of the first. I liked Web Crawler as well.
Oh, I didn't use Web Crawler.
Web Crawler had a little spider that would come down. And it was like creepy.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Of course you'd like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But Ask Jeeves like, hello, sir, may I help you? And you're like, get out of here, you dummy. It's like the Clippy guy from Microsoft days.
The paperclip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was a great talk. Less text, more visual. She was all about that. And the stats she said, I wrote down, the number of mobile videos viewed in the past 5 years has grown 844%.
Like 844. That's unreal. I mean, we all knew video was important, and that's mobile video views. I think that's important too, that those are mobile video views.
There's I know a lot of websites now, builders are really trying to focus on that mobile first strategy. In like, I use Divi for our church, and you use whatever you want, but Divi has like a very mobile friendly version of editing that you can do on the back end. Like, even when you have columns, like you look at it, it was a 1, 2, 3 column across a desktop. Divi stacks those in your builder in the background now. So you can think about how this is going to look on mobile, because it's going to stack those columns anyway. You're not going to get columns on a mobile device.
That's helpful.
So it's like, maybe I shouldn't even do the columns. It's like, maybe I should just think about what would this look like on mobile and just let it be whatever it is on desktop. It's fine. Because, our traffic, I know for our website, is predominantly mobile. I think we're in the 70, 80% mobile. Yeah,
and that's incredibly high.
Yeah. So I think a lot of us are probably there and we don't realize it. But checking your data is a big deal.
And of those videos, majority of videos are listened to without audio.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really important thing we need to think about.
I'm glad you said that. I found a tool for that adds subtitles for free that is awesome.
And
it is called Capwing, KAPWING.com. Go there. They have a subtitler. You can upload your video, any format, and you can actually change the format and you can edit the subtitles. Now it lays them on. It's not a separate track of the video. It's on the video. And then you could download it again, and it's now post that. Because here's the thing. Even if it has audio or doesn't, put the subtitles on. It's just, people are not, don't rely on Facebook subtitles.
They're terrible. Have you used them?
Oh,
you spend way more time editing the subtitles than you do.
When people, the only time people come in and go, hey man, are you okay? It's when I'm in here going, in my office. And I'm like freaking out because I'm trying to type fast enough before it goes to the next subtitle and moves around. And it's like so frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, who made this? Which hater of people made this? It's so bad.
Who loves to torture us?
It's Facebook.
When it first came out, I was super stoked because I was like, great, and a way to caption. And then I used it one time and I was like, oh no, oh no,
and
never again.
You can upload to YouTube as well, and they have a subtitler, and it's not as frustrating, but it's still. But what I love about Capwing is that the video really doesn't play unless you want it to. And so you can you can edit the subtitles and determine how long they stay up. And you can pick the font. You can pick the size of the font, or whether it's got a little box behind it or not, or what color is it. And it's great.
Well, you had me at free. So
it's free.
That's awesome. We'll put that in the show notes too, so people know how to go to that.
All right. Well, that's the 5 talks we heard that we really want to discuss in this podcast. This was, there's so many more. Like you said, we'll put a link to go and get that replay pass for that. It is a great conference this year. So many good talks and such good content. So
it was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
So go to SethMuse.com/101, get the show notes. And again, Meagan, thanks so much. We'll be back next week with some more Seminary of Hard Knocks. See you guys.